will now call the September 25th, 2024 regular Historic Preservation Committee meeting to order. This meeting has been posted in accordance with Nevada Open Meeting Law. All voting members are present, and we have a quorum. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. First item on the agenda is the initial comment period. Public comment during this portion of the meeting must be limited to matters on the agenda for action. Each person has up to 3 minutes to speak on a specific agenda item. The public may call 702-589-9629 to provide comment. Is there anyone in the office or in the audience that wants to speak now? If not, later. Seeing that there are no comments from the audience and there's no one calling in, and I assume nobody left any comments or is on the phone, I should say. Gotcha. We will close the initial comment period. Next item on the agenda, approval of the minutes for the August 28, 2024 regular meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Next item on the agenda, presentation by Utilities Director Joseph Stubitz regarding the city's efforts to address non-functional turf on city property located within the historic district.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman, Commissioners. I'm Joe Stubitz, your Utilities Director. Going to provide a presentation on what the city's doing to address non-functional turf. So just to give a little introduction, we're in the Colorado River Basin. It spans over 246,000 square miles across 7 states and the country of Mexico. It's managed by the Bureau of Reclamation. That's an agency in the Department of Interior, and water's used for several purposes: agriculture, municipal, industrial purposes, hydropower, fish and wildlife, and recreation. As you know, we've been in a prolonged drought since about 2000. It's been one of the driest periods in over a century. There's drought contingency plans that have been implemented in 2019, and the agency is actually putting forth the post-2026 plans as well to operate the system. Lake Powell and Lake Mead are significantly below average and pose a risk to both hydropower generation and water supplies. And for the next year, the calendar year, the forecast is a Tier 1 shortage. So sustainable water management is needed to address these deficits. This slide shows a visual representation of Lake Mead in the last 40 years, and then the picture to the right of Lake Mead and Hoover Dam show at the very top the portion of water that goes to Nevada. So of the 16 million acre feet annually that's allocated, Nevada gets 300,000 acre feet. So to address some of the water shortage issues and Nevada's limited supply, the state legislature enacted a law in 2021 that will prohibit the use of Colorado River water to irrigate non-functional grass starting in 2027. The law applies to Southern Nevada commercial, multifamily, government, and other properties. It does not apply to grass in single-family residences, such as in front and backyards. Boulder City is preparing to comply with this law and the requirements by removing non-functional turf in various areas of the city. Now I'll go into a little bit of the progress and where you come in the historic district. So first we have North and South Escalante. The area total is a little bit over 44,000 square feet. SNWA identified over 12,000 square feet as non-functional and would need to be removed to comply with the state regulation. We did submit a waiver request to reduce the setback requirements, and that waiver request was accepted for both South and North Escalante. The design that we did in-house includes pavers and decomposed granite to expand both ADA accessibility and provide a walkway around the park. And this slide just talks a little about the waiver. The waiver was approved for both South Escalante and North Escalante. This slide here shows a picture of what the design conceptually will look like. The design criteria was to replace the irrigation. It's about over 50 years old, and there's several mature trees in the area. The protection of those existing trees was number one, to expand ADA accessibility, also to reduce collateral impacts to special events. The pavers that were selected are Sierra Blend. It's the same type of pavers that are adjacent to the rec center and that are in front of the credit union. Next we'll get to Frank Crow Park. This area is almost 40,000 square feet. A smaller amount, just over 4,000 square feet, was identified as non-functional turf to meet the setback requirements. And a combination of decomposed granite is currently installed. This shows a picture of the progress. So the last small portion of turf to be removed is just adjacent to the alleyway there. And we are considering a bit of ground cover in this area, something that's drought tolerant, provide some color, maybe some lantanas, things of that nature. This slide shows Bicentennial Park, City Hall, and the rec center. For some reason, it's all kind of included as one parcel. We did submit a waiver request to SNWA. This area is just over 58,000 square feet. Over 18,000 square feet was identified as non-functional. So in the waiver request, what we asked SNWA to keep, all the grass in front of City Hall, minus the parkway, the park strip, we're calling it, the grass in front of the rec center, we asked to keep, as well as the grass to the east of the rec center. So the little pop out, that grass area with the tree kind of going into the street area on Arizona, as well as to the west side of the rec center, we did not ask for a waiver on. So that's a recent submission to SNWA, and we're waiting to hear back. The justification we provided was there's regular scheduled programming in the rec center for the Tiny Tots program. This area in front of City Hall is used frequently during high trafficked events. You know, we have pictures of kids playing, things of that nature. So we're hopeful to get that included. This shows a picture of the pavers I mentioned. So the Sierra Blend, this would be what the pavers would be in North and Escalante, North and South Escalante. And we'll continue on with the parks. Wilbur Square, just over 131,000 square feet of turf. Over 14,000 square feet was identified as non-functional. We did submit a waiver request, and it was accepted to extend the sidewalk north along Park Street. So instead of a 10-foot removal of turf, just a 5-foot removal of turf with an extension of sidewalk. And on the south side of the park, instead of removing any turf, we're going to extend the sidewalk 10 feet into the street because the street's wide enough to accommodate. And we'll get into some other city facilities in the historic district. The police station, this area is identified as just about 2,200 square feet. SNWA identified all of it as non-functional, and we're planning to install landscaping. There is a small portion of the area that could be used for a pet relief station for the canine officers, and we haven't requested a waiver yet for this parcel. So then certainly would welcome any feedback, and then also wanted to make you aware of the parkways and streetscapes in the right-of-way. This shows some non-functional turf that has been removed, replaced with a combination of artificial turf and trees kept, but all the parkways and the streetscapes in the right-of-way are also identified as non-functional turf. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
So I have a
Yes, sir.
question. So I apologize up front if I didn't quite get all this. I appreciate your report. I also have all kinds of letters and exhibits and papers and artwork regarding the project and everything. But as I recall, at our last meeting, we had many members of the public. The main objection they had, and I understand, you've got certain legal obligations and ways you have to do this, but the objections were that it's an eyesite, and they want to get rid of that mound there. And how soon can we see that mound reduced or removed? I think that was the main issue last time, as I remember.
Are you referring to the
Chuck,
reclamation?
that's a different project.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Is this a different project?
Yes.
My apologies.
No worries.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Sure.
Why do you use the decomposed granite?
So that's used it's a affordable cover. It does provide a lot of dust protection, and it's a pretty significant weed barrier compared to like the 3/4 inch to 1 inch rock can collect debris, collect trash in that area. So it's a simplified way to remove the turf and still look acceptable.
Yeah. So I find there's a place over on Birch where you guys removed the, by the sidewalk and put that decomposed granite in there.
Sure.
And it's so light, it goes everywhere.
Okay.
And to be honest, it's probably mostly gone now. And when we do big celebrations, those kids are running back and forth, and it just goes everywhere.
Okay.
Nobody cleans it up afterwards. Nobody puts it back. And I just feel that it's going to be dirt in a couple of years.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm not a fan.
Okay.
Speaking of decomposed granite, I'm also not a fan of using red decomposed granite. We're not in Utah or Sedona. But I agree with you. Usually I've seen decomposed granite used not as a paving, perhaps. I mean, as a full-on acres of paving, but as for use for pathways, or with plants planted in the middle or within it, more as a mulch rather than a hardscape. I mean, I know it is a hardscape, but when it is at such a grand scale, I just think
Yeah.
it's,
I feel it's a cheap alternative, and seen it in yards as well, and when it rains, it does pulverize. It disappears. It doesn't last. I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Have you driven past Garrett? Is that the same material that you're talking
I believe
about?
so.
That they took it out? Okay.
Yeah, and anywhere that there's kids, that stuff just goes everywhere, everywhere. And there's no way to keep it clean and tidy.
But would you rather have bricks? So that's my question, as far as what's the alternative to that? I don't know.
I don't know, maybe that's what I'm asking you.
So we had considered a variety of ground cover in that area. So I guess the two options would be, kind of to leave that type of surface, cover it with shrubs, or replace the surface down the road with the pavers.
Ground cover would be
Yeah.
nice.
So when the grass gets mowed, or somebody takes care of it, monthly, weekly, I'm assuming, but once this ground cover goes down, there's no maintenance, is that true?
Are you talking about of the shrubs?
Or just for the ground cover itself?
So when I say ground cover, I'm referring to shrubs and
Yeah.
flowers like lantanas or,
But in the places that you're not going to be putting that?
Hardscape, like
yeah,
decomposed granite should be maintained.
Yeah,
Yes.
is that getting maintained, or is that just left to be by itself? And
it's very little maintenance as far as to my knowledge, but I'm not
until it
certainly
ends
an
up in the
expert.
street
Yeah.
and in the sidewalks?
And maybe you could report that.
It's usually corralled. It should be like kind of corralled or contained, rather than like on a street that can just wash into the street.
you know what I'm talking about when
Yeah, I
they have
totally
that,
get it.
okay.
Yeah.
It is a quick fix to get the turf removed and comply, so it's something that feedback's appreciated. We certainly, welcome the feedback to, what would be desired for a uniform look.
I have a question. When the
Sure.
grass is removed,
Yes.
does the city get refunded for that, like a private resident? I think it was $5 a square foot or something like that.
So we are eligible for reimbursement. We have an interlocal agreement with SNWA for all of our parks and
Okay.
including the golf courses, that it's not at that rate.
Okay.
So I believe it's $1.50 per
And-
square foot.
And where do those funds go? To maintain the areas after, or what happens with, that's quite a bit of money.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly where the funds go back to. I'm not aware if they go to the general fund or the utilities fund. I'm not certain on that.
Okay. If you could maybe get back with us or
Sure.
Michael, just to let us know what
Yes.
happens with that.
And aren't you supposed to replace it with vegetation, like a certain percentage of vegetation?
There are requirements to get the rebate. There's a restriction on the land, that the SNWA kind of puts on there or you have to pay the rebate back. There's, in some cases, the existing canopy can be used as the 50% shade coverage. So you don't necessarily have to put back new trees, but there's a combination of trees and potential shrubs that could be needed to get the rebate.
And in those areas where you have the ground cover, where you may use drippers or little sprinklers, are you allowed to do that, or does it have to be no water in those areas at all? Because you mentioned some type of ground cover, and that's going to take some water. So is there a restriction of how much water could be used, or bubbles, or,
No restriction on you can water plants. They just want drought-tolerant plants, so they have a list of acceptable plants that could be used, but anything can be watered.
Okay, and you probably covered it, because you covered quite a bit, but all the areas that are public use, the grassy areas, and you said around those areas, 5 feet, I think, in, would be pavers around most of that, or what would be the border for those, like at Bicentennial, or you mentioned Escalante? What does that border look like? Is it pavers, or is it ground cover?
So for North and South Escalante, the plan right now is to have a combination of pavers and decomposed granite.
Okay.
And that's because of the usage of those facilities, because of the special events.
So that decomposed granite that she was talking about would be on the inside of the pavers, so it wouldn't run out into the street. The pavers are the border of it, correct?
I believe we have it on the outside, but that's certainly a consideration that we can, oops, I'll go back to it.
Well, that's a bigger scale than
There we go.
residential, so that could become a problem if it's not on the inside of
Okay.
the pavers.
Yeah.
And this is sort of related to my question as far as ADA compliance. Is the purpose of, how are you making Escalante Parks ADA compliant? Or how do these combination pavers and decomposed granite making it accommodating?
We can
The idea
cross
is
over it.
to utilize existing ADA kind of ramps near the sidewalks to get access to the park. So it would be wide enough to accommodate the requirements of ADA.
So those are considered routes, what you're putting in for ADA accessibility?
Correct. That's my
So the
understanding.
combination of pavers and decomposed granite. And decomposed granite is a appropriate material for ADA compliance?
Would the decomposed granite is only utilized for the setback requirements because SNWA requires a 10-foot setback from curb to be functional. So the decomposed granite is just to get that perimeter. The entire width of the pavers is intended to be a walkway that also meets ADA requirements. So the width of the paver path would be such that,
So I'm confused. You're, from the curb into the park, how
Yes.
much grass are you taking out? How
So-
many feet?
so for North and South Escalante, we got a waiver of 7 feet instead of 10
Instead of
feet.
10.
So 7 feet is going to be some hard surface that ADA folks can use?
Yes, yep, the pavers.
But it only needs to be 5 feet for ADA compliance? Because that's the paver, and the other 2 feet is the decomposed granite?
Yes.
Can you just go 5 feet and make it without the decomposed granite?
I believe that's certainly a possibility around the park. The areas where that would be a bit of a challenge, I think, are in the knuckles.
Well, those are turnarounds, so yeah, you have to make those definitely bigger for ADA compliance, but the single pathways, and I don't recall what the ADA width is for,
So wheelchairs are not going over the granite, is what you're saying?
well, if they only need 5 feet, then we only have to remove 5 feet of grass rather than 7 feet. Because you only have to accommodate, if it's for accommodating ADA, that's the only, and I just don't understand what the decomposed granite is for, if it's for ADA compliance.
The decomposed granite is not for ADA compliance. It's
So-
just for the non-functional turf removal to meet the setback
fill that
requirements.
space.
Right.
Yeah, to fill that space. So like at South Escalante, there's 2 entry points at the northeast and northwest side of the park. And then for North Escalante, the 2 entry points would be at the southeast and southwest side of the park to make a loop.
So folks enter on those entry points, and if they
Yes.
only need 5 feet, then why do you have to put an extra 2 feet of decomposed granite?
That's to meet the requirements of the,
That's only because you put
Yeah.
in a waiver for 7 feet. Could you put in a waiver for just 5 feet?
sure, yeah, I mean, that's certainly a possibility.
But would that help?
Enough square footage being changed over?
Well, yes, you can put in a waiver for not even removing, so to comply. And I think, from what I read with the waiver request, you have to come up with a purpose or a need. And if the purpose is, let's say, ADA compliance, then that's great. Then I would think that SNWA would agree with that. Because it's still functioning for the purpose of removing turf. Maybe
So
not 7 feet, but it's 5 feet. Would that be sufficient to SNWA?
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly something we could check into. The two areas of note, just that are slightly different, there's a couple mature trees in the southeast corner of North Escalante and the northeast corner of South Escalante, where you see the path kind of jog a little bit. That's where we have identified avoiding the mature trees. So that certainly could present an issue. And then are you saying that you're not in favor of decomposed granite to the edge of street?
How about
Collectively?
just the sidewalk to the edge of the street?
Okay.
I mean, if that's up to code, I don't know,
Or pavers extension to.
pavers, yeah,
okay.
whatever material is appropriate for ADA compliance.
All right.
And when I read the definition for functional turf, it did state, it had to be located 10 feet from the street. But then there was an irrigated grass area that provides a recreational benefit to the community, and if there's active program recreational turf, there's something about that if it was 1,500 contiguous square feet or greater, and these two parks are that, have that measurement. What I'm saying is that I think the 10 feet from the street doesn't apply. From the street or
Davenport?
interior fence facing parking lot, unless the turf area is at least 30 feet in all dimensions.
Yeah, so there's two criteria here. What they are saying is that parks are functional turf. But what SNWA is also saying is that because irrigation close to curbs, close to parking lots, it's difficult to keep that water on the grass. There's always overspray, which is why they also have this requirement for the 10-foot buffer to bring the grass back 10 feet to prevent overspray. So yes, the park is functional, but that 10-foot between the grass and the curb is not. But we were able to get the 7-foot waiver. Certainly, Mr. Stubitz could inquire if SNWA is willing to grant a 5-foot waiver instead.
Yeah.
But that's the reason why there's the mandatory removal of the 10 feet to prevent overspray.
So the overspray would run into that decomposed granite area?
Or the parking
Basically,
lot,
the
or the,
par-
yeah.
So
Yes.
Isn't that the same overspray, though? If it's overspraying in the street, it's overspraying on the granite. To me,
Yeah.
that doesn't make sense,
Yeah.
You're still getting
right?
water overflow.
You're still getting this overspray. And now you have decomposed granite. The weeds are going to come through because they're getting watered, and nobody's going to be there to maintain it. So you're still getting overspray.
You're just not into the street.
Exactly.
Right.
It's just going into the decomposed granite. It's not really saving any water now, is it?
Well,
Madam
if
Chairwoman,
it's
can I add a
not-
comment here, please?
Oh.
Oh, I didn't know he was.
Oh, I didn't know he was on.
So two things to keep in mind here. My PhD is actually in water history. With the overspray going into the decomposed granite, it's still recharging aquifers and groundwaters. You're not getting overspray that runs into the concrete and down the asphalt of the street and then becomes wasted. What this setback is designed to do is capture that groundwater back into the overspray back into the groundwater aquifer system and recharge our aquifers. That's part of why this design is there. Another question was asked about decomposed granite and ADA accessibility. The requirements are any aggregate under a 1/4 inch, which decomposed granite is often 1/8 or 16th inch or less. so it falls into the requirements. It also becomes hardened and compacted when moisture is applied to it and smoothed out properly, and it becomes almost concrete-like if you do it that way. And so for those types of systems that are put in place, and I don't know how Parks is necessarily designing this, but if you do it properly, it is fully ADA compliant.
Thank you.
So how does the water get into the wastewater when it hits the granite? I would think it would just evaporate.
So much like other soils, it's going to seep down. You are going to get evaporative loss. You're going to get that on grass. You're going to get that on any surface. But as opposed to concrete or asphalt, which are designed to be hardened and have water flow off, the decomposed granite still allows water to seep through and into the groundwater aquifer system.
So I've seen in some communities in the Southwest the use of permeable materials. Decomposed granite can do that, but there's also, I think, pavers and those kinds of hardscapes, which would allow water to penetrate those surfaces and go back into the groundwater. Is that an option for whatever pathways you're considering for ADA compliance?
Yes, I mean, certainly ADA compliance was just a kind of a bonus feature of getting the park design how it is, and any hard surface is going to meet that. So it could be all pavers, it could be all decomposed granite, it could be a portion of decomposed granite and some pavers.
Is the same setup going to be at Wilbur Square? Because that's the area that's used probably a lot more than Escalante.
So the plan for Wilbur Square was to extend sidewalk on the north end to Park, so 5 feet of sidewalk, and then 10 feet of sidewalk along the south edge,
Okay.
which I think is Colorado. So it's currently, conceptually, it's a sidewalk design, not pavers.
Okay, and is that going to be ADA compliant as well,
Yes.
with the same pavers coming in on each side of the park, or? you said
So
cer-
no pavers.
No pavers? okay.
Conceptually, it's just sidewalk,
Concrete.
concrete.
Concrete, okay.
Yep, concrete, yep.
Pavers look so much nicer, but that's my design.
Okay.
But, so an ADA on Wilbur Square is going to be where? The access into the park?
So that the actual design, I'm gonna get to that slide real quick. Oops, sorry.
There you go.
Yeah, it's working, sorry.
There you go.
So we don't have the final design completed of where, ADA accessibility would be. I mean, as the park's currently set, there's a couple ramps that go down on Colorado Street. So those could be 2 entry points where the sidewalk ends on the southwestern side could be one, but the full design of this has yet to be completed.
I can't remember when brought up, when the idea of adding sidewalks to Wilbur Square was brought up. There was a discussion about how to make it ADA compliant, and we were going to wait until the Bureau of Reclamation finished their landscaping, because I think they put in a new ADA accessible trail, and I don't recall where they were going to have it dump out on Arizona or where along the road. And this is an older image, obviously. But we were talking about how to, because were they going to put in a sidewalk? They were going to add a sidewalk. And so we were thinking of whatever happens with Wilbur Square should maybe meet up with whatever they were doing for ADA accessibility within that part of that part of town. So, I don't know, I guess have a look at what they
Sure.
did, and see where the crosswalk would be between what BOR has done to Wilbur Park.
Okay.
And I think the other thing we were talking about was the crosswalk, what is the street?
Wyoming?
Wyoming. Where would the connection be on the south side of Wilbur Park to Wyoming to then connect to the sidewalks that are there? Or would there be crosswalks?
Yeah, I think that would have to be designed, and at this stage, I unfortunately can't answer that question.
So that's still in the works?
Yes.
As far as the design?
But
Is
the-
there, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, the hardscape around the park, is that viewed as acceptable? I know-
Sidewalk?
Yeah, the sidewalk, yep. Is it preferred pavers versus concrete?
Pavers are always nicer.
Okay,
I'm sure you
To keep
have a
consistency.
budget to keep to, but pavers are always nice
okay.
to have. My last question is, what's the timeline? Do you have a completion date for all this, or?
Unfortunately, I don't for Wilbur Square. I know a big component of that is irrigation replacement, because that's needed also. But I had to get back to you on the schedule.
Okay, thank you.
There used to be, I don't know if there still is, an ADA committee here in the city. Is that still around, or?
So the Boulder City Accessibility Working Group was tasked to come up with a series of recommendations to the city manager, and that was accomplished. And so staff is currently reviewing those recommendations and working to implement those over the next couple of years.
Do any of those recommendations have anything to do with the plans that he's talking about tonight?
Certainly, the Public Works Director has been consulting with the working group on accessibility issues.
Can you clarify the regulations for the residential median or parkway?
Right. So we sent letters out to folks to encouraging them to take advantage of the rebates. So SNWA is granting the higher cost rebates to those folks, even though it's in the right of way. But the grass is deemed non-functional. The option is for the city to submit a waiver request. SNWA has indicated that they're not leaning towards accepting any waiver requests for that type of turf. So there will need to be a plan to address that before 2027. So we're hoping to get voluntary compliance in the meantime.
Okay.
Does the letter, did it go, when it went out, or where do we find information on when you replace turf, what percentage is replaced with other vegetation?
I'm not sure.
Isn't it at 20, there's a certain percentage that if you're going to yank out,
Oh, to get the rebate. Yeah, it's 50.
well, is it just for the rebate?
Yes.
Or- Oh, okay.
Yep, yeah, it's just for the rebate.
Okay.
It's a 50% coverage.
Chair Davenport, that information is provided on the SNWA website.
Yeah.
So
okay.
it goes into great detail about the rebate programs, what are the requirements and the guidelines for landscaping replacement.
So even though the city won't seek the rebate, therefore they won't, there's no, I guess, incentive to follow SNWA's example of that percentage point, replacing it with some other vegetation.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
So I see a lot of vegetation yanked out, trees cut down, and then just paving, but no replacement of any kind of vegetation. But if somebody were to apply for that rebate, and if they yanked out that same amount of grass, they would have to replace it with a certain percentage of vegetation. And I just don't know what that percentage is. Is that something we should embrace so that we don't just have a city that's just concreted over, paved over, without any replacement of any vegetation? Like, I guess why did you decide to put vegetation in front of the police department versus elsewhere in your plans?
I think it was just more of the look, the aesthetics there, and that it's not being used. People aren't kind of playing in that area, so trying to avoid putting vegetation in areas that would be active areas is kind of the idea.
But then you're, not to Bicentennial Park, but Frank Crow Park, you are planning to put some vegetation in, so what's the rationale for that? Is it just to make it look better, or?
So that's certainly an option. Yeah, we haven't come to a decision on that, but I mean, the vegetation with the decomposed granite is a option. Changing the hardscape surface to pavers is an option. So we haven't set on one particular way. That was just an area that we needed to tackle, and
It's just such a prominent area within a really important part of the historic district that it would be great if we had some really good examples of when the city's yanking out these median greens and replacing it. Is the red decomposed granite appropriate, or should it be some other hardscape or vegetation or design? And I just wanted to give a shout out to, there's a home here that I think did a really good job of xeriscaping in the historic district. I'll find it. But I don't know, I would encourage the city to go look at that. And
Because what are the chances of keeping grass in some of these places? Because people do cross over this decomposed granite to get to this green area. So I feel it is getting used. So when people say it's not getting used, I think it really is, because all you have to do is just go and look where the decomposed granite is here in town, and you can see it is everywhere. It's in the streets, it's on the sidewalks. So those places are getting used. So I feel we've made such this big mistake with the Water Authority building and the whole, I just feel like us as a committee really need to be extra cautious of what we take out. Because we've just, in my opinion, we've lost our green.
Clean green Boulder City.
We've lost it. And when people come into Boulder City, they used to say, oh, that area was gorgeous. It was so pretty. I can assure you, there's not one single person that comes into town now and sees that, where that building is now, and say, oh, that's really gorgeous landscaping. Who's your landscaper? They do not say that. It's quite the opposite. So I think us as a committee needs to be really aware of what is getting used, what's not getting used, what's getting taken out. I just ask that we just be aware of that and really know what we're getting into. Because this is going to be one hot chocolate mess here in Boulder City. I mean, I'm all for saving the water, but
there's a way to do it that takes
it's
some
done
planning
correct.
and some
Correctly.
creativity, and not just,
Because it really is destroying our
As much
community.
ground cover as possible.
We are a historic Boulder City, and I think we're special. I love this place. I love this town. And it's just, do you live here?
yeah,
You live in Boulder City?
yeah, I was born
Okay.
here. Yeah.
So you understand.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
All right. That's
The-
good to know. Thank you.
the home I was talking about was 418 Birch Street.
Okay, I wonder if that's on the.
It's on the corner of,
See if I pull up the presentation real quick to. Is that it or no? No. Okay.
no, it's closer to the water filtration plant on the other end.
Okay, on the
And it's
backside.
actual xeriscape.
Okay.
And I get a lot of folks are using artificial turf.
Right.
I have my opinions about that. Sometimes it's great, other times I don't think it's as cooling as people think it is. I think it can be also a heat sink, but it looks great, especially with what's going on over here. But
Exactly.
but then there's options for trees, like more people could put in more trees and other vegetation instead of turf. So. Anyway. Well, as a committee, do you think we need to? What do you think we should do as far as not just be aware, but I mean, garner public input or?
Do we even have a say? Are they just going to take it out? Or is it really up to us as well?
You know, we've applied for waivers in areas, and so we've committed to complying with state law in that regard, and that's our intent.
Can we get as many waivers as we can? Can we ask for nothing to be removed and see, and slowly get until we
So
can come with a compromise?
I mean, one example of a waiver that was approved, it's outside the historic district, but the, is it Broadbent Park? Where there's the parade route.
Broadbent.
So they accepted the turf to the edge of the street there
Yes.
because
Yeah.
of the nature of that, how that facility is used. The only area they said needed to be come out was kind of by the tennis courts and the horseshoe pits. That the sloped area on the side they said needed to be
It does
removed.
get used. They say it doesn't, but it does. It does get used.
Chairman Davenport, certainly, staff is taking the feedback the commission has provided into consideration. As Mr. Stubitz noted, we do have to comply with state law, but we will seek waivers where we can to help preserve the character and community of Boulder City and the historic district, because we understand the importance of that.
It's hugely important to
Yeah.
me, anyway.
Yeah.
So we asked for as many waivers as we could possibly have, being within their guidelines, because it sounds like we don't have a say-so outside of the state guidelines, other than waivers, correct?
Correct. The SNWA grants or denies the waivers.
So is there another area after this is done? Or is this is the state requirement? Like, are there other areas that are going to be hit outside of what we're dealing with today?
Outside the historic district, yes, we have to comply across the entire community.
But if we can prove that those areas do get used, that are saying are not getting used, is that an option for us?
Yeah,
Okay.
through the waiver process, yes.
What are the other cities doing, like Summerlin? Because they have lots of green parkways. And
Yeah, I know Henderson is removing the turf and replacing with decomposed granite. Just kind of going in. I'm not certain what Summerlin is doing.
yeah, because Summerlin is kind of like us. They have a lot of green grass. Parks.
That's what we're known for. Thank you. Sorry if I.
No,
Yeah,
don't apologize.
on you.
That's fine.
So will you come back and kind of give us an update on what was allowed to be used for the waivers versus no?
Sure.
This
Yeah, I
is
certainly can.
set in granite, set in stone, no pun intended.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Did you have any other questions or?
Are we still waiting for the waiver for in front of the rec building?
Yes,
Okay.
that was a recent
And how long
submission.
does that usually take?
Within a month.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Because the kids use that so much, and that's a huge patch of green grass that needs to stay.
Right.
I do have one last question, and you may answer it or may not be able to. The post office
Yes.
around it, is that, anything going to be done in front of the post office? Is that in our purview or?
It is in our
It
purview
doesn't-
as a supplier, because we are the utility that supplies them water, and they will need to comply with the state law.
It just looks like everything's dying around there. It's horrible. And I was just wondering what they were going to do with that area, or if it's in your plan to do anything with that.
So it's not in a, you want to speak up? Sure.
Post office is federal property, so we have no enforcing or regulation authority over them. When we've gotten code enforcement complaints regarding the landscaping, all we can do is ask nicely.
Yeah.
And sometimes they comply, sometimes they don't. So the only regulatory authority is we can shut off the water where SNWA is determined as non-functional turf, but otherwise, we can't force
of
the post
fence.
office to do anything.
Okay, thank you, Michael.
That's
Thank
right.
you, Mr. Bay.
So potentially could be just dirt if they see that fit.
Potentially.
That's too bad.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda for possible action, historic preservation, local authority, and outreach efforts.
Thank you, Commission, Chair Davenport. So at our meeting last month, there were several residents that really expressed concerns in regards to the lack of awareness of our historic preservation program, the district itself and its boundaries, any of the associated guidelines and ordinances that apply to the district. A lot of those public comments were focused on that these requirements were never communicated to them when they purchased their home. So based on those concerns, the commission directed staff to consult with our city attorney, Brittany Walker, in regards to the city's ability to obligate real estate agents and brokers to disclose this information to potential home buyers within the district. So based on communication from our city attorney, the city is preempted by state law from regulating realtors, brokers, and other real estate professionals. So these professionals are directly governed by state law, and so we have no local authority to require them to disclose that information. So we really strongly encourage home buyers and sellers to do their due diligence prior to any real estate transaction by contacting the Community Development Department regarding any applicable laws, ordinances, or requirements as it relates to planning and zoning and the building code, as well as they can consult with a real estate attorney in regards to specific disclosure requirements that the state may require that could be applicable to the sale and purchase of the home in a district or anywhere. With that, moving through this item, staff has also begun just some initial outreach efforts and research really to help provide greater awareness of the city's historic district and ways that we can do that. So earlier this month, I emailed 63 real estate professionals that sell homes within our jurisdiction, just giving them general information in regards to our historic district, the requirements and the guidelines, providing them information on the interactive map that we recently developed. And within this email, there were embedded links to those resources that are on our website that they can refer back to find that information. For them to use as a resource or for them to pass on to potential clients. I also provided my email and my phone number so they can directly contact me if they had any questions or concerns, as well as pass my information along to their clients. We've also began kind of looking into developing an educational workshop, and we kind of briefly discussed this at the last meeting in regards to providing just an educational opportunity on the city's historic preservation program. So initially, so far, I've reached out to the Nevada Association of Realtors in regards to hosting a workshop in conjunction with them. I have not heard back yet. From their website, the classes that they offer are eligible for continuing education credits. So these are credits that real estate professionals are required to have in regards to maintaining their license. And so the state requirements to qualify for a continuing education credit from my review are just beyond the scope of staff's qualifications internally, as well as our capacity at this time. So it would just take a little bit of time, a lot longer for us to develop something like that and go through the submittal process, meet the qualifications, find somebody who's qualified to instruct the class. So we kind of find it more appropriate to develop an educational workshop that the city, so Michael and myself, would be able to offer to local real estate professionals within Boulder City. But this could also be open to anyone in the public to attend. And we're open to the commission's recommendations and feedback in regards to the development of the workshop and how we would go about hosting this in the future. And then just to provide some further context to past outreach that the city has done in regards to the development of our historic preservation plan and the ordinance. So as you may recall, May of 2021, staff sent mailers out to all property owners in the historic district, inviting them to 2 open house opportunities that were going to be hosted in June of 2021. This was in regards to the development of the historic preservation plan as well as the ordinance to get their feedback. They can be a part of the planning process at that time. And then in 2022, upon the approval of the Residential Historic Preservation Grant Program, the city also sent out mailers again to all of the property owners in the district, giving them information about the grant and a little bit more information about our historic preservation program. So our intention is prior to the end of this year, I've already requested all of those addresses again, so we would be sending out an additional letter to all of those property owners within the district to remind them of our program and give them some additional information in hopes of continuing to promote some greater awareness of the district. And so that's my report at the moment, and I'm available for any questions that the commission may have and further direction. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for sending out that letter to the realtors and for starting to put a workshop together. Have you heard had any feedback from the realtors or brokers?
I've gotten a couple thank yous that they would kind of retain the information and be able to, send it along for their clients for the future. But those are only a handful of those professionals at this moment.
Concerning the planning for the workshop, if it would be appropriate for a commissioner to volunteer to help on that, I'd like to volunteer my services to help that along when the time comes.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I spoke to one of the realtors at Desert Sun Realty, and they added on their MLS that it is a Boulder City historic house.
Which property did they say?
Whichever ones fit in the guide.
Interesting. So, yes, because I went on Realtor.com and Zillow, so I'm not sure if that information has yet clicked, but I did not see anything in any of the 8-ish properties that says anything about the historic district. Just one home said historic area. There's a lot of classic realtor descriptions such as charming, close to charming historic home, so that gets a little closer. Old world charm, that was my favorite. Like, I don't think we're in Europe, but okay. But it does say own a piece of Boulder City history. So it's there, little trickle of, acknowledging that some of these homes that are in the historic district have a historic value, but it doesn't go as far as to say this is in the historic district and, extolling the virtues of what that means. So I definitely think there's a need for some type of a workshop with realtors and brokers and real estate folks. And looking around online, there's a number of communities throughout the United States that hold these, whether it's the Historic Preservation Commissions in those communities or friends groups of historic properties, working with those those governments to put on these workshops. So I did send some examples to Nikisha. And so there's some really good options out there for what we want to do. And maybe this is a historic preservation Nevada State grant idea. I don't know if we could use those kinds of grant funds for that kind of program, but trying to think of where else money could come from, especially if we wanted to extend this to Henderson or Las Vegas, to all of Southern Nevada, if that makes sense. If we're going to go through this effort, do we just include everybody, or is that just making it too big? Should we just concentrate on Boulder City Realty staff first? But
Maybe
anyway.
a rebate from SNWA.
I was thinking that rebate could be used for trees, but anyway. Sorry, a whole other topic.
I have a question.
Go for it.
So we were talking about outreach to real estate. I'd like to kind of bring it into Boulder City of having outreach for the residents that's in the area to see how we could help them with grants. Or I received a text from some residents, and I'll read it to you. It says, "Hi Denise, how are you? Question, if someone is changing windows out in a historic home, do they need approval first?" I didn't know that answer, but I did ask her, was the people who were looking at changing it out, were they contributors or non-contributors, and she didn't know. So she said she would find out, and I gave her your name and number. But things like that, maybe doing a quarterly workshop with the residents, or we don't have to call it a workshop, but just a gathering to where if somebody's frustrated about the granite and the chat that's in those areas, or people using turf or building or whatever, just some type of meeting where they could express their concerns about their own area. I was coming down, I think that is Birch, and the first 4 homes coming off of Colorado was just in disarray. And I don't know, my first thing was to knock on the door and ask if they need any assistance in cutting grass or whatever. And that would be something that, could be spoke about at a quarterly meeting with the residents. I think that outreach inside versus the realtors, that's fine. But somebody had brought up at the last meeting that the district didn't look like a historic district. And so if we really are wanting it to do that, we need to reach within first. So that's something that maybe we could talk about.
Certainly, when we do the mailing to every property owner within the historic district, we are going to offer our services to sit down with them.
Oh, wonderful.
That'll include meeting with Ms. Mooney if they have any questions about the regulations, if they have any questions about the history of their property, about improvements they'd like to make, so that she can provide that guidance.
And that was going to be my next question. Ms. Mooney, does she make herself available to, I understand she lives outside of the state?
Yes, she does, but she can easily consult with property owners and provide them guidance.
Okay,
So
and do they
with-
have to reach out to her, or is she reaching out to them?
No, through this communication that we will send out to them, we
Oh,
will
okay,
offer
okay.
that opportunity. So they would contact our office.
Okay.
We would set up an appointment for her to talk to them and give them guidance.
Wonderful.
That's something that we have been offering since we entered into the contract with her firm and now with her new firm, Broadbent, because we want to provide that support to the property owners within our historic district to give them guidance from somebody who is an expert in historic preservation.
Okay.
In the olden days, when we had our Historic Preservation Day, there was a little bit more outreach to folks who would come, and we would demonstrate how to repair something, and was there for advice. And the Historic Preservation Day is kind of now morphed, not really into that, helping property owners with their questions and needs. Maybe we need to go back to that. And is that an option, or do we want to do it more quarterly, like you're suggesting? I don't know, something to think about, or maybe that's when we have our conversation about Historic Preservation Day. We could kind of talk about, how does outreach look for during Historic Preservation Day? So,
And even a survey from the residents of what they want, as far as meeting quarterly or yearly or whatever. Some will say, yeah, I want to meet, and some may not, but at least we're reaching out and asking them what their needs are. I think that would be appropriate. So back to the question on the window, can you tell me, and you may have said it, so she's asking, can they replace windows on their own if they're contributors or non-contributors?
Yes, they can. They do not need a certificate of appropriateness regardless of the status. We do have the residential grant program, so they wanted to come through and qualify for that. But that's definitely something that we can look at for them.
Okay.
The other thing Nikisha and I have been working on is updating the city's website to be a little bit more clear on what is available to the public and hopefully make it a little more user-friendly. So stay tuned for that. Does anybody else have any? Okay, thank you. What's the next thing? All right, next on the agenda, update on implementation of the commission's goals and priorities.
Thank you, Chair Davenport. So on a monthly basis, staff provides the commission with an update on the adopted goals and priorities. These are usually indicated in bold on the matrix. This month, we don't have any updates, so I have nothing to report out, and I'm available for any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Does anybody have anything? Okay. All right, next on the agenda, discussion and update on the status of properties in the historic district or other potential eligible properties.
All right, so also on a monthly basis, staff provides a report on the status of historic preservation activities as it relates to building permits, awards, projects, and grants, and that report has been included in the agenda packet on page 59. I have several updates for this item. So under building permits, the first section, as requested by Chair Davenport at our last meeting, I've provided some information on the work that's occurring at the city's police department at 1005 Arizona Street. This is in regards to Public Works project and installing EV charging stations within the parking lot, as well as the supporting mechanical equipment to support that. So that's on Exhibit A. That shows the approved plans, and then I went out and took some photos a week ago, kind of showing where they are in the improvement. The installation is still ongoing. Under other activities, as it relates to the landscape changes and the future interpretive signage proposal for the Bureau of Reclamation Administration building, I've included correspondence that Director Mays had sent to the Bureau in regards to the concerns that we had. That was in early August, and then we received a response from them that was later in the month of August, and so that's Exhibits B and C. As an update on the status of the proposed interpretive signage, at this moment, the BOR has reached out. They are not prepared with the design changes. And they had previously scheduled to be on the October meeting, but they will not be coming forward next month. I'm not aware at this time of when they want to come back and when that will be finalized. They asked for our dates in November and December, but that's the last communication that I've had with them. In July, this commission did make a recommendation to approve the Shane Patton Scholarship Foundation Public Memorials and Monuments application. And this is for the installation of a memorial in Wilbur Square Park in honor of Shane Patton, who was a Boulder City resident that lost his life in Afghanistan. And so in August, the city council did approve the memorial, and it will be in Wilbur Square Park. There are going to be some considerations in regards to existing landscape in the area and preservation of space for special events in the park. As Chair Davenport said, in regards to our webpage, I am working on a series of changes so we can have a website that is a little bit more user-friendly. So stay tuned for more information on that. In some exciting news, so in July, staff submitted a nomination application for our new design guidelines and our interactive map to the Nevada APA 2024 DeBoer Awards. And so this was submitted under the category for outstanding cultural or environmental plan. And we have been selected by the state's APA chapter to receive this award in conjunction, with Courtney Mooney and our former consultant group, Northwind. And so staff's going to be accepting that award with Mooney on October 22nd. The APA conference for Nevada is going to be hosted in Las Vegas. Next month, we will have representatives from the Main Street program coming by and presenting on the program, giving us a little bit more information on that. This was a request that the commission made back in July. And also, at the request of the commission, Commissioner Christopher McMahon, he's provided a written progress report in regards to the development of the Nevada State Railroad Museum. So just to give a quick summary, the construction of Railroad Museum Road is continuing. The kind of underlying infrastructure, like utility lines, street lights, hydrants, those have all been installed. And the grading, curb, and gutter work that's currently underway with landscaping, paving, and striping to follow over the next 2 months. The construction of the museum's visitor center is anticipated to begin in December of this year, with the center hopefully opening to the public in 2026. And the State Public Works Department, as well as LGA Architecture, they're working with the museum in regards to updating the campus master plan for future phases of expansion. There's more details in the attached progress report. And if Commissioner McMahon is still on the line, he can definitely provide some additional information and answer any questions that you may have. I'm available for any questions that you may have, and thank you.
I had a question about the plexiglass that they're installing at the water filtration plant.
Thank you.
I'm glad to see that they're moving beyond the original contract, but do you know how they're attaching the plexiglass, or to the floor, to the, how are they? I don't understand. Or will they be freestanding?
As to the method of affixing it to the structure, I don't have an answer to that, but obviously everything that we're proposing, we are reviewing with SHPO and getting their approval before proceeding. The intent is to, number one, provide electricity so that the main room of the historic water filtration plant can have light again. It can be better utilized to highlight the history of the plant. The intent with the plexiglass is, being in the facility several times, litter and debris have been dropped down in there. So the plexiglass would be utilized not only as a safety measure so nobody can fall in, but then to prevent that debris from being down there, and possibly utilizing lighting in there to illuminate the pits to help educate on their purpose. And also utilizing backlighting with the elevator and other areas that can help highlight the equipment in the building.
Do you know if the plexi will allow for ventilation? Oftentimes if you cover something or encase it and there's no air movement, then there could be some problems. I'm just...
Yeah, that's something I can discuss with the Public Works Director.
Glad to see that's moving forward. Thank you. I don't think I had... Did anybody else have anything else? All right.
What am I doing?
Go for it.
On the USBOR administrative building, we did get that letter, and I read it. I just would like to keep that highlighted and on the agenda for whenever they do come. And were they given these pictures of the thermal and the landscaping?
No, we did not pass that along, but we can surely do that.
Yeah, if you would do that, maybe they could be a little prepared when they come. But I would like to keep that going.
Do you have a status on the, didn't you have a signature campaign?
Yeah, I think we're a little bit above 500 signatures on the petition that is going around town, so people are really getting interested on what's going to be done. We know that's a federal project, but we as residents of Boulder City do have a voice regardless because we pay taxes. So when they come, we will address that. And we expect, I mean, it gives us more time to get more signatures and more impact. I know that Ms. Rosen and Ms. Titus will be in town, and I was invited to their little meet and greet that they're having here in Boulder City, and I am going to present a letter and these pictures to them since they are the sitting officials, and hopefully we'll get some kind of feedback from them. But they do know about it, so.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. All right, final agenda. Commission discussion regarding potential agenda items for upcoming Historic Preservation Commission meetings.
Okay, so this is the commission's opportunity to discuss collectively what they would like to see as agenda items for future meetings. Thank you.
I have one thing to ask, and that is our November-December meeting,
Oh, yes.
unless you were going to talk about that some other time? No? Okay. So the November meeting's vacated, so is the December?
So the November meeting is on the 27th, and the December meeting is
So
vacated.
the other way.
Mhm.
So last year, we moved the November meeting to December, early December. And it kind of straddled both November and December.
So you guys like had two meetings back to back. So you had a later meeting in November, and then you had a special meeting that we had in early December.
Did we have a meeting in November?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
And I owed you an email back. I will be in November and December, so I'm available.
Okay.
You
She
will
said
be
that.
in.
I will be.
Oh, gotcha.
in- so-
But the November 27th meeting is 2 days after or Thanksgiving?
Thanksgiving.
It's the day before Thanksgiving. So certainly if there's a majority of quorum available that Wednesday, we'll continue with that regular meeting. That's what we just wanted to establish, that everyone would be available to have the November meeting. So if everybody is going to be in town and available, we'll proceed as normal.
Did we have, did you receive emails from everyone saying they'd be there available?
Well, we're asking right now.
I probably won't be. But I don't have to be here.
How many we need for a quorum?
You need 3.
So, I mean, the other part is, in lieu of that meeting, do we want a meeting in December, early December?
If BOR is going to be here, yes.
Oh, wait, is that when they were coming to the November meeting?
did.
They have not confirmed.
okay.
I gave them that date, and I let them know the December meeting was vacated, and they have not responded to me. So
So you're asking about an early December meeting? Yeah, I would vote for that, for
Maybe
whatever,
look
for
at the
whatever
week
that's
before.
worth.
Would you say the week before?
Week before the 27th is
Oh,
the
yeah,
20th.
I'll be here. I'll be here all of November and December.
The 20th would be problematic because that's the Planning Commission meeting.
Okay.
It's always the third Wednesday of every month.
Anybody? I mean, I prefer to have something in early December, like the 4th
Or the 11th.
or the 11th.
Either one is good with me.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah, I
That's
agree.
two, that's three.
4th is good for me.
I'm not sure. Can't commit yet.
Okay. Christopher, are you still on the line? Do you have a preference? Oh, okay, thank you. Okay.
So you look at
Do we have to pick a date, or do you want to first, we'll give you 4th or the 11th, and it'll depend on other use or other meetings for the city that day, or those 2 weeks?
Yeah, typically the first Wednesday of the month should be available, and we'll just proceed with the 4th unless we identify a conflict, and then we'll communicate to the commission, and then look at the second Wednesday of the month.
Do I have to ask for a vote, or just because we
No,
all
we've got.
nodded?
If the VOR, if they come back with a confirmation, can we call a special meeting?
Yes, but I can also make them aware now of this date, and so they can let me know if this works for them or not, so.
Does that sound good? Okay, great. Thank you.
So for the items to keep on for future that we were talking about earlier, is it possible that we just kind of keep our finger on the pulse with this removing of the grass? So we know that we are using our waivers to the maximum potential that we can, if that makes sense, to make sure that grass where it is truly getting used, where they may think it doesn't get used, but it truly does get used, that we keep a finger on the pulse so we know what those areas are, and we can ask for waivers for those. I'd just like to continue to be updated, to
Yeah.
stop the grass from coming out before it's too late.
Yeah, certainly we can, in our monthly update on
Okay.
activities, let you know the progress on waivers.
Okay.
Yeah.
And see if we need to put in more. If, I don't know, that's my opinion. It may not be yours, but.
Well, we're going to pursue the waivers to the extent that SNWA will permit us.
Well, of
So,
course,
yeah.
of course. But I think that there's a lot more areas that are getting used that are being saying that they're not getting used. But I really do believe they're getting used, because if you just look at that area where they do the parade, right there in front of Birch Street, I don't know the name of that little park.
Frank Crow?
Is right there. That gets used daily, constantly. And that gravel is everywhere. So somebody said that that didn't get used, but it does.
Who determines if it gets used or not? And what are the guidelines and the parameter to say, oh, that's not getting used?
Right.
Do
we have a
sit for a
say?
month and kind of check mark, there's people there, they're playing, they're walking?
So this agenda item is for future
Sorry.
agenda topics, and I'd hate to stray from that to violate open meeting law.
Okay.
My-
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have,
Well, we can add it.
Okay, that's all I ask.
I have a suggestion for a future item. You know, when you come down Nevada Highway and turn down Arizona, there's a sign on the corner. It's a city sign. It's green with white lettering, and it mentions, it's got an arrow, and it points to City Hall and museum and different locations. I would like to discuss the possibility of, at the various corners or sections of the historic district, that the city consider putting up signs that say historic district, and kind of let the homeowners know, let the drivers know, let the residents know, let the tourists know, let everybody know that we've got a historic district, and these are the kind of general boundaries within the signage.
So as part of the city's wayfinding study that was conducted 2 years ago and implemented in this past year, we have banners throughout the historic district that indicate this is the historic district. So if you look at every one of our street light poles, there's a banner, and it indicates this is the historic district.
And are those banners, they're, excuse me, they're weatherproof, they're windproof, they're all those kinds of
Yes,
things?
Yes, and if they, if we have problems with them, we would replace them. So we have that throughout the historic district.
Okay.
How big are those banners?
I don't know off the top of my head.
You read it? Because I've never seen it.
Yes,
You can read it.
yeah.
Because I didn't know they were there. Did you? Did anybody know that they were there?
There's some right outside, so when you're
Well,
exiting,
now
you'll be able to look.
I've been there 4 years and I've never seen
Yes, I
one.
have seen them. They look very Art Deco-y that are not Art Deco-y here style, but yes, I have seen them.
Okay.
They're pretty, but anyway.
Can you read them?
Any other agenda items? Okay. All right. Oops.
I have a quick question. Are we going to keep on the agenda the realtors here in town and kind of what we're moving forward with that?
That's a good idea.
Yeah, absolutely. I
Okay,
can,
perfect.
yeah, keep you guys informed. Mhm.
Thank you.
All right, now is the final comment period for the evening. Each person has up to 3 minutes to speak on any topic. The public may call 702-589-9629 to provide comment. If there's anyone in the audience who'd like to speak, please come forward.
Good evening. I am John Madrid. I'm a resident of Boulder City, and I've got some issues. I do not want to see a disaster like we have up the hill. According to my calculations, and I only went up to 5th grade math, so it might be kind of rough, but I've got a total of 47,811 square feet of grass that they're going to remove and replace with either concrete, pavers, decomposed granite, or whatever. In addition to that, there's sidewalks, there's pavers, decomposed granite on top of that. The Bureau of Reclamation, somebody forgot to ask what I'm asking you right now today. Number one, we need a mitigation plan. And included in that mitigation plan will be an environmental impact report, because the environment's going to be affected by the creation of a heat island effect. And Los Angeles and California, they are doing all kinds of stuff for that. So when they replace, let's say, 1 square foot of grass with 1 square foot of pavers or concrete or decomposed granite, there is a scale that you can calculate and say, if you replace 1 square feet of paving, then you need 3 square feet of grass lawn to compensate for that heat effect. Okay, otherwise Boulder's going to be a giant furnace. We need to put not welcome to Boulder, but welcome to the furnace. In addition to that, there's alternative things for the mitigation. Why can't the city look into possibly recycling methods of the water? Why can't they recycle it? A lot of other places are recycling water and use that. So we can mitigate that with the state and say, well, you know what, we're using so much water, but we're going to recycle so much, so therefore, guess what? We're exceeding our water usage by not using it. In addition to that, again, we need an environmental impact report so we know what we're dealing with. If there was one done that was on the Bureau of Reclamation, we wouldn't be in the situation where we're in today. So we need to be proactive. The other thing that the gentleman, Mr. Stubitz, forgot to mention is the original historic plan. Boulder City was laid out with 2 parts, 1 architecture and 2 landscaping. The architecture is just as important as the landscaping. And when you replace a green lawn with artificial turf, and I know because I did a project in California, and as it turns out, for that particular project in North San Diego County, the temperature of the artificial turf was 15 degrees warmer than normal. So when they replace, if they do use, or anybody in the city replaces their lawns with artificial turf, how are they going to mitigate that heat effect? Is that required? I don't think so. People tear out their lawns, they get their $5 a square foot or whatever it is, and they throw in some rocks and cactus and they're happy. And that's an abortion. I'm sorry. The other thing too, so again, what I'm requesting, and I hope that I can't ask it, and I know you can't respond, but I'm hoping that somebody asks the city for an environmental impact report that will include the mitigation, the heat island effect, and the historic preservation, so we don't lose our identity for historic Boulder City. And the other thing too is that on one of the items is about Ms. Mooney and the historic, her being a historic advocate. I have a couple questions for her. I've got an open schedule all day tomorrow and all day Friday. I'd like to meet with her. Any time is fine. So I would like to make a formal request that I would like to meet with her tomorrow in person, because I want to show her some historic windows in town. And that can't be done over the phone or on Zoom.
You'll have to speak to.
That's my request. So,
Thank
so
you.
anytime tomorrow or the next day is fine.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.
Always coming and going at these meetings when we show up. Good
Appreciate
evening,
it.
ladies and gentlemen. My name is Robin Baker. I do live in the historic district close to the Rocks. And prior to the last meeting I attended, I don't know if I would have the interest level that I have currently. And I've been trying to find information so that I could better understand what happened with the Bureau of Reclamation project. One of the things I've been looking for is the environmental impact report, which I have not been able to access. I am of the belief that public buildings, should have public information available. So I don't know why that is such a difficult thing, but I'm going to keep looking for it. However, speaking of environmental impact reports, when the utility gentleman was up, I'm wondering about the impact if we do all of these SWA projects little bit at a time, one by one, a little piece here and a little piece there. What is the overall effect as they remove grass from this park, that park, replace greenery with decomposed granite, which I agree with you. We bought a piece of property that has decomposed granite between the sidewalk and the street. Generally, it takes weekly upkeep, but when there's a festival or any kind of activity, people getting out of their cars, that decomposed granite is in the street and on the sidewalk, so it's daily maintenance. I also, I would like you to think about requesting an environmental impact report on these overall SWA projects, because collectively, I think we may end up with the results that the Bureau of Reclamation ended up with. But if we agree to a small piece at a time, it may not appear to be significant. The other thing I'm going to ask you to think about, and I appreciate our new city planner, because she has been very responsive to questions I have asked. However, is it now the city's responsibility to carry out the goals, assess the goals on the matrix, which I hope at some point in time, you ladies and gentlemen, review and rework so that it's a more usable document. I'm not able to tell from reading it if there are new projects that are going on that are of priority, because it's for a 6-year span or a 5-year span. So anyway, for me, it is a very difficult document I do have more than a 5th grade education, but it's still very difficult for me to understand who's the responsible person, who's doing it, what exactly is going on. So if somebody could please take that under their guidance and make it more usable for residents of the historic district, I would sincerely appreciate that. And then the third thing is in response to the windows. Because if you apply for the grant, I understand you get help with your windows or an understanding. But if somebody in the historic district is replacing their windows, there should be some type of guidance, some information that is provided beyond having to apply for a permit. So I don't know how that would look. I'm sure with the outreach, maybe an awareness will be developed so that people understand what the windows should be looking like or could be looking like, what it's like to have a house that's in compliance or out, how many strikes you need to be out of compliance, and if that's even a significant thing. So anyway, thank you always for your time and attention and the efforts that you put forward, because this is an important little part of the world. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. 3 minutes, she's got time.
Good evening, Commission. Thank you for your attendance tonight and your attention. I'm Brandon Smith. I own a home here in the Historic District. Just a quick update on some of my own personal efforts in trying to get this BOR building sorted in some reasonable manner. We are indeed pushing about 500 signatures now on the circulated petition. With our upcoming festivals, the Worst Fest and Art in the Park coming up in the next few weeks, I will be hammering everybody in in attendance to give their opinion of what we're stuck with, because this would be the first time that most of these people are seeing what's been constructed since last year's events. So we'll hope that that pushes us way into the 1,000 plus, and then the BOR can no longer ignore us or continue to delay their response in correlation to the nightmare that they've created for this commission, the city's citizens, our local residents who border the site and have to live with the increased temperatures on a daily basis. They did have a crew there the other day, just kind of wandering around. I went over and asked them what they were up to, if they were, unfortunately, half the crew didn't speak English. The one in charge did, and just said that he was kind of taking notice of the plants that had died, and they were working on getting them replaced. And that was about the long and the short of that. I know you included some of my thermal photography in the packet tonight. I don't know if anybody at home got to see those, but I would like to, for the first time, actually announce the fixborbc.com website. For those of you who aren't in attendance and haven't been physically handed a piece of paper to sign up to the petition, it's fixborbc.com, fixborbc.com. For any of you out there listening would like to sign up, please do so. I also did have, I will make for the next meeting available the single letter that I've personally received from the BOR via email. That might be, I mean, it doesn't really say much of anything, but you can clearly see how dismissive they were of the concerns that were presented months ago before the project officially was completed, when the fence came down. The day I blew up on them about what had they done. And you guys can make your own assessment as to the disregard that was presented in the email. I will make that available to you guys. And I would like to just make a suggestion in regards to the whole real estate tie-in, because I'm pretty sure that nobody in the city would argue that the homes in the historic district and that are of historic nature add tremendous value to the city, both in an interest perspective and for those people who own and care for them. I might suggest that maybe you guys nominate, maybe just find one of the better realtors here in town and ask them if they'd like to participate, maybe be the go-to realtor. Maybe there might be some little gold star that you can give them and say, hey, commission approved real estate agent, blah, 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 I don't know. And I'm sure that they could help help out and kind of be the real estate police maybe a little bit and go, hey, look, I just noticed that, your historic home came up for sale today. And, we might encourage you to add this following verbiage to the listing. Share that with your agent. If they need any further guidance on that, you can ask me, the realtor, or pass that along to the commission and get you guys kind of directly involved with the listings content. So, instead of dancing around it, implying that maybe perhaps it's in the historic district and maybe perhaps it's historically charming, blah, 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 like get it in there and say, this is like, kind of jump in there and say, this is a historic home, it is a contributing historic home, and just kind of go at it that way. And like I said, I look every day and see what is and what isn't new. I'd be happy to do it, though I'm not an agent, so I don't know what I could contribute
Well,
in
thank
that
you.
matter. But
Thank you so much.
just saying, thank you so much.
Appreciate.
Do a good job.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Anybody else? All right. Seeing no one else has any other comments, no one's on the phone. This meeting is adjourned.